All right, let's dive right into today's explainer. Today, we are tackling a sneaky, incredibly quiet trap that literally catches every single one of us at some point, and that is perfectionism. Imagine our friend Hootley for a second. He's sitting at his desk, just staring down this giant, intimidating start button on a totally blank laptop screen. And floating all around his head are these little thought bubbles, right? Things like, not ready yet, or maybe I'll do this later. Does that sound familiar at all?
Seriously, ask yourself, have you ever waited for the absolute perfect moment to begin something? Maybe it was starting a massive project for work, recording a presentation, or honestly, even just making a basic life decision. We tell ourselves things like, I just need a little more time, or I really should organize my thoughts first before I dive in. But what happens? Instead of starting, we just keep thinking. The task just sits there, and your mind gets heavier and heavier. The irony is, the longer you wait, the harder it actually becomes to just start.
So to break us out of this paralysis, here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll talk about why you need to stop waiting until you feel ready. Then, we'll unpack the perfectionism delay loop. After that, we'll see how action creates readiness, dive into the 2-minute rule, and finally learn to lower the emotional cost. Let's jump right in. Part 1. Stop waiting until you feel ready. Our foundational problem here is that perfectionism loves to whisper this very, very convincing lie in our ears. It essentially tricks us into believing that we absolutely must be fully prepared, completely confident, and totally calm before we even press start. But, as we all know, real life simply doesn't work that way. Which brings us to Part 2, the perfectionism delay loop. Now, what's absolutely crucial to understand here is that this delay, it's not about laziness. It is not about weakness, not at all. When a task feels uncertain, your brain doesn't just hand you confidence, it hands you a bunch of questions. What if I make a mistake? What if this just isn't good enough? Your brain is actually just trying to protect you from discomfort.
And this brilliantly illustrates the endless cycle perfectionism traps us in. First, we wait because we want some clarity. But while we're waiting, we start to overthink. And all that thinking, it breeds doubt. Finally, that doubt pushes us right back into waiting for this magical feeling of readiness that honestly is never going to arrive. Basically, perfectionism hijacks your brain's natural protection mechanism and turns it into this endless loop of delay.
Moving on to Part 3, action creates readiness. So, how in the world do we break out of this loop? Well, we have to completely pivot our mindset. We have to realize that action is actually the exact thing that creates the readiness we've been desperately searching for.
Okay, so here is the massive paradigm shift. The common misunderstanding is that confidence is the fuel that leads to action. Like, you need a full tank of confidence to start the car. But the actual mechanism is completely backward. Action is what provides your brain with new information. Even taking a tiny, seemingly insignificant step reduces the mental fog. It makes the task concrete, and it literally shows you what to do next. That new information is what actually builds your confidence. So remember, readiness is the result of action, not the prerequisite.
Let's look at an incredibly relatable example. Imagine you just need to write this simple message. Thank you for your email. I will check and get back to you. I mean, come on, it should take exactly 1 minute. But then, perfectionism creeps in. You start thinking, is that too cold? Should I be more polite? What if they misunderstand my tone? Suddenly, a ridiculously easy message becomes emotionally expensive. You literally try to write the perfect version in your head before typing a single letter. You open the window, close it, open it again. It's exhausting.
And you do this because starting feels like committing. But listen to me on this. You do not need full confidence to begin. You only need a rough first version. A bad first draft is absolutely not a failure. It's just raw material. You can edit a draft. You cannot edit nothing. Let me say that again. You cannot edit nothing. Once something exists out there in reality, you can improve it. But you can't improve a blank screen.
Let's look at Part 4, the 2-minute rule. This is going to be your highly practical, fully actionable takeaway for this explainer, so we can shatter that delay loop once and for all. Just 2 minutes. That's it. When you face an intimidating task, whatever you do not ask yourself, do I feel ready to finish this? That is way, way too much pressure. Instead, ask yourself, can I just touch this task for 2 minutes? You aren't promising to finish. You certainly aren't promising perfection. You are just creating contact. So what does 2 minutes actually look like in the real world? It looks like ridiculously small, low-stakes actions. Open the document. That's it. Just open it. Write one incredibly rough sentence.
List 3 keywords. Read the first paragraph. Heck, literally just create the file name and save it to your desktop. These actions might look completely trivial, but they are so powerful. They instantly break the delay loop because they prove to your brain that the task is no longer some unknown, scary monster in the closet, but a real, manageable thing. The goal here isn't performance, it's just activation.
And finally, part 5, lower the emotional cost. So how do we actually integrate this into our daily lives starting today? Well, the next time you catch yourself waiting, I want you to pause and physically name it. Tell yourself, out loud if you have to, I am waiting to feel ready. Once you call it out, pick the absolute smallest visible action you can count or see and just do it.
I really want you to remember this powerful mantra. Readiness often comes after starting. A useful beginning is almost always going to be small, it's going to be imperfect, and yeah, it might feel slightly uncomfortable, but that is completely normal. You don't need the perfect mood. You don't need complete clarity. You just need to start small enough that readiness actually has room to grow.
So let's leave our friend Hootley behind. He's finally pressed that start button and is looking way calmer, by the way. And let's bring this all back to you. I want to leave you with a question to chew on. What will you touch for 2 minutes today? Seriously, don't wait for the perfect moment. Take that tiny action, gather that new information, and just let the confidence follow naturally. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.